Hello everyone, Professor Toybox here along with Luke Skywalker, and we're back in my Scarif toy box working on mission number 1 of Dark Forces, the 1990s DOS game that I am converting to Disney Infinity. And today we're going to work on Citadel Tower interior. Now, when we open up the blast doors here for the tower, I want to go into another toy box. So we're going to add in a toy box door. And we're not going to interact with this directly, so I'm going to set this back here behind the scenes with the other Creativitoys. And we're actually going to invoke this using a trigger area. So I'll come back up here to the Creativitoys drawer and select the trigger area. And we're going to put this just inside the door here. So about right there. And we'll put this all the way against that wall, and then come up here and move this over. There we go. And so when the user enters this trigger area, so new logic connection when entered by player, Annie, we'll come over to the toy box door and change the level. And under the toy box door properties, I'm going to set this destination to be a new toy box. And I had tried to use a new interior, but building an interior toy box was just too limiting to me. So I'm going to create an empty toy box, and we'll build one from scratch. And for the name of this, I'm going to set this to be, let's see, Citadel, oops, help if I spell it right. Citadel Tower interior. And I'm typing this in on my Wii U screen. There we go. Genre doesn't matter because the player will never see that. And we'll go ahead and hit save. So that creates a new toy box inside this one. And locator tag is fine. We don't really need that because there's only going to be one entrance into that toy box. And so now we'll come out here, and before we leave this toy box, we need to save our change. Otherwise, we'll lose that door. So I'm going to come over here to save. And we're going to save our Dark Forces mission number 1 file. We want to make sure we save the toy box before we leave it, because if we leave the toy box without saving the changes here, we'll lose those changes. There we go. And now, because I can't open those doors just yet, I'm going to come in here and put myself inside this trigger area, which should spawn the prompt. And we'll go ahead and continue, and I will meet you on the other side after I've done a little bit of preliminary building. Okay, I'm in my interior for Citadel Tower, and I've done some preliminary building for this, and I've set this up to match the base in the original Dark Forces mission, so the layout in here pretty closely matches that. And if you remember the video when I played through this in the very first episode of this series, you'll see the layout is fairly similar. There are some differences. For the sky, I'm using the Death Star sky, although you will not see this sky when you play this toy box. I've left the ceiling off for now, just because that will make it easier to populate this and set up some of the Creativitoys that I need to use. And I really like how this has turned out. It's fairly close to the original. There'll be a door here, and then we take a little elevator up to an upstairs area up here, and there'll be a switch over here like there was in the original game that will open the door down there. And we take the door through here, and I'll give you a bird's eye view of this in a moment from Spark mode just so that you can see how to build this. This is one area where I deviated a little bit from the base in the original Dark Forces mission. The stairs went off to the right, And I actually took this to the left because of where I wanted this to turn out. There will be a door here, and when you come through here, I'd like the Death Star holographic to be here. And then we come around down the long hallway to the vault. And there will be a stormtrooper back there, and you flip the switch, which will open the vault. And I designed this vault to match the one in the Dark Forces mission versus the big tower that you climb in Rogue One that would have had the plans. None of the Star Wars towers or any of the towers that I could find in the toy box drawers were climbable, which kind of limited what I could do. And so I think this will work out fine, though. This looks like the original vault in the Dark Forces mission. And when I pick up the collectible up there for the Death Star plans, a door will open here. And rather than riding an elevator up to the roof like the original mission had, there will be a toy box door here, which will take me back outdoors to the back side of the tower, which is one of the reasons why I had the stairs go to the left out of here versus the right, because then the rest of the architecture brings me around so that the door back here would be on the opposite side from where we came in over here. And so I'll give you a little bit of a view of this in Spark mode, and I'll see if I can put together some kind of a diagram so you can see how this is laid out and build this on your own. I made this section extra high because we got the balcony up over here, and I'm using the higher wall panels. And then this area is already covered back over here. This is where in the original game there would have been a door leading outside, which just doesn't make sense for this game because the outside is where we start in this toy box versus Dark Forces where you're starting on the interior. And I'll try to go a little bit slow here so you can see how this is put together. And this is the balcony area up top with the elevator. And the doorway down here, which leads into this little secret room back here. And I've got a kiln railing set up over there. And you can come around the stairs here, or come around the pillar there, and down these stairs, which then leads you over here to the room where the fake Death Star plans are, the big holographic projection in the original game. And then down this long corridor here, and I've got light panels set up along there. And all of these consoles here and in here, these are from the plants drawer, customized for the Imperial space station. And again, I'll put the ceiling on this when we're all done. So that's what I've got so far. I think it looks pretty good, actually. It looks very similar to what's in the game. The next thing that I want to do is some of the pieces I want to set up in here, like the holographic Death Star projection, are only available in the interior toy boxes. And so I'm going to use the little trick here to bring the interior out. And if you haven't seen this trick used in other videos, this will be hopefully very useful for you. So we're going to go ahead and set up a temporary toy box door here, and I'm going to take this out when we're done. And we're going to edit this, set its properties, and for the destination I'm going to use a new toy box, and this will be an interior toy box because that's where the toys are that I need. We're not actually going to use this toy box in the game. And the level name doesn't really matter. I'll just throw a T in there for toy box, and we'll save and let it link the toy box. And then we'll go back and back. There we go. And then we come through the toy box door and go ahead and travel there. And now the elevator music for the interior will start. And in here, to be able to bring the toys out, we need to do 3 things. I need a button. And I need a time delayer. There it is. And we need the toy box door, which is already there. So in the time delayer, we'll go ahead and set this. Properties. The delay time, I'm going to make this 5 seconds. That'll give me enough time to do what I need to do. And I'll explain that in just a second. For the toy box door, we want this to go to an existing toy box, and we want to go back to the Citadel Tower interior. And we can turn off the require confirmation. Let's see. Gotta get these things lined up here. And sometimes you drop a toy, and first one you drop, creativity-wise, it doesn't always seem to pick up. But it doesn't really matter because I'm not planning to use this toy box. I think the interiors are kind of buggy, personally. This one we can select, so when we push this button, come over to our time delayer, and we'll start the delay. And on the time delayer, when the delay is complete, we'll come over to the toy box door and change the level. And now I want to set my drawer to be something that isn't available in the outside toy box. And I want to find the drawer that has the Death Star projection that I'm looking for. There it is. So the electronics and appliances drawer is the one I want. So I'm going to go ahead and close out. So that'll be our default when we open this up. So what I'm going to do is press the button, which will start the time delayer, and I'll open my drawer up, and then we'll change the level. So here we go, starting the delay. And then we'll open up our drawer, and after 5 seconds it switches us over to the Citadel Tower interior where we came from. And now we're back in here, so as soon as we open up our toy box drawer, here we are in the drawer that we left from, which happens to be an interior drawer. So that's a little bug, I guess, in here that you can make use of. So now I can come over here and go ahead and put my Death Star projection. And it's not quite the Death Star, it's basically Endor with the Death Star circling it. This was the projection that was used when they did the mission briefing in Return of the Jedi. But for our purposes it will do, it's the closest thing we have. I'm going to go ahead and drop that there, and there we go. So there's our Death Star projection, and there's other holograms and things that we could use. This Earth one is nice, except it's Earth and not the Death Star. But some of the other nice things that we have in here are some Death Star screens and consoles and things. So we could potentially make use of some of these, except, as you'll see, they don't always line up really well. So we'll have to, I can't really place that on that wall, and it's going to basically sit out here by itself. So some of these you can't really use out here. This one I could use though. It's not going to sit there, but it could sit out by itself. However, that's from Echo Base, and it's got some snow around it, so that won't work for me here. But there's some other computer consoles and things that I could potentially make use of. Let's see if there's any other Star Wars ones that might make sense to use. These are not exactly Star Wars. These are available in the plants drawer. We have a Death Star console. Looks like we could use that. That's kind of nice. So I could potentially find a home for this somewheres. Let's see. Nice place for that might be down here. So that'll fit in that corner. And that's pretty cool. There's a Death Star wall console. But again, that one's not going to line up where we need it to, as you see. So that's not really going to be too useful for us. There's a corner light, which I'm actually surprised they did not make available outside the interior. By default, we have these plain flat panels here, but not a curved panel. That's kind of a shame. And as you'll see, this one doesn't quite sit inside the corner, but it could be close enough for us to use in certain circumstances. And we got a smaller variant here. That one does line up. And then the wall lights that we've already got available to us, although these don't line up like the ones outside of the interior. And there's some other little decorations and things here, none of which I think are going to be too useful to me. I do like this wall corner light though. I'm just looking around to see if there's a place I can make use of that. I don't think there's going to be in here, but this is a good toy to keep in mind for future toy boxes, that I would be able to use this if the opportunity allowed. Not there. I've already got lights set up almost everywhere, so yeah, I'm not going to use this one this time. So anyway, that gives you a good feel for what's available. And now that I'm done with that, I can go ahead and delete this toy box door. I don't need this. The toy box still exists, so if I need to link back to that, I can. Okay. So I think the next thing I want to do is go ahead and put in some enemy generators and things. And so we're going to go ahead and do that. And, interesting. So these are the same creativity toys that are available outside of the toy box. And I'm going to go ahead and set up some enemy wave generators. I know I need one over here. And I'm going to put these right here in the middle of the floor for right now. I'll move them out of sight later. And I want one back here. I know I'm going to need one up here. Put one there. In the original Dark Forces mission, there were no enemies in here. There were, however, some enemies down here. As well as some enemies back here. Okay, and we'll need some locators. And I'm going to go ahead and put down a bunch of locators for each of these where I want enemies to be in the toy box when I come in here. And I will be back in just a moment. Okay, I've got my locators placed, and now I'm going to go ahead and hook up the enemy generators. So we'll come over here to the first one, and we're going to connect all the locators up for this area, which will be the first area that the player runs into in the interior. And I'm only going to hook up this first one online. I'll do the others offline, but just in case you haven't seen any of my other videos and don't quite know how to do this, we'll go ahead and hook these up. Most of the other enemy generators will be pretty much the same. They might use a few different enemies than what I'm going to use here, but for the most part, it'll be the same. So all 4 of those locators are hooked up, and now we'll go ahead and configure the wave of enemies. And as we come in here, in the original game, I believe they had a stormtrooper or 2 and an officer. And I think there was a commando as well, but we don't have that here. So I'll do 2 officers and 2 stormtroopers. And under properties, we're going to go ahead and generate a random locator. We don't need any kind of delay. Generation effects, we can go ahead and hide those. And we do not want to hold until all are generated because that'll cause a delay. There we go. And now we need a way to trigger this. And I'm thinking what I want to do is spawn those when the level is started. And so I'm going to come back over here and look for my level starter. Here we go. And we'll go ahead and drop this over here kind of behind the scenes where I've got the sky changer hooked up. So, new logic connection on catalyze, which basically means when the level started. We'll come over to our wave generator, and for this one we'll generate the wave. So that will only happen one time on level start, and that'll generate the enemies in here, and that's fine. 4 enemies are not going to be a problem to be present, and the player has to come down this hallway, so that's good. This one back here, we could go ahead and generate now as well at the start of the level. And so I would probably go ahead and hook that one up too. So new logic connection on catalyze, I would hook that one up. And I'll configure that one and hook it up to those locators offline. This one up here, I would not spawn that until, I would not spawn those enemies until we get this door open here, which I haven't set up yet. And the enemies down here, there's no point in generating those until we get close to this area back here. So I'm going to go ahead and set up the other generators, and I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, I've got all of the enemy wave generators hooked up, and they're connected to their locators, and they're dropping stormtroopers or officers wherever they need to be. And as you can see, those are all hooked up. And this one up here is hooked up, and the 2 down over in this area are hooked up. Next thing we need to do is put in the door here that goes to the elevator. And for that, I'm going to need to drop a path and connect a block to this. So I'm going to drop my path here, and the point will go all the way up. Let's see, there we go, to that point. And for the path properties, come in here, and basically I don't want to auto start the objects when connected. Everything else looks fine. And now we need a block to connect to. And this large block wall here, oops, this one over here, is I think ideal for this. And I'm going to go ahead and put this below the terrain for now, where it's out of the way. And I don't think the Imperial texture is what I want to use here. So we'll go ahead and use the same texture we used for the exterior wall. And that would be this floor grate here. And we'll come in here, a new path connection. Go ahead and connect it to that path. So there's the door. And under the properties for that wall, everything in here is fine, but the movement style needs to be one way and stop. Okay. And now we need something to trigger the door to open. And there's a number of things we could do. I was thinking we could put another hack terminal up here. Another terminal that they would have to hack. And I think that would be fine. We've already done that twice outside though, so I'm not sure that's necessarily the best thing to do. But there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of other options. So that's fine. We'll go ahead and put another one of these in here. And I'm going to put it up here so that when they open this, they can see the doorway open over there. I could even put it over here for that matter. And we'll set the properties for this. And again, I want any type of character to be able to use this. The default time limit's fine. And new logic connection when terminal is hacked. Come over here to the door. And we will do reset and play. And that will open the door. And at the same time, new logic connection when the terminal is hacked. We'll go ahead and kick off the enemy generator up here. There we go. And that takes care of that part of it. Now we need a button over here to open the secret door down there. So I'm going to go ahead and stick a button over here in the corner. And the door that we're going to connect that up to is going to go down here. And I don't really want, since it's kind of a secret door, it kind of needs to match this texture. So I don't really want to use one of the blocks out of the blocks drawer. However, there are a couple of terrain pieces that you can actually attach to a path, and one of them is this long, tiny, thin block. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this down, and this needs to sit inside the gap about right there. And we'll go ahead and drop another path. And this one we're going to center on this block. And this time I think I'm going to go down with it so it's out of the way. And we'll basically set this one up the same way we did the other one. So properties, turn off the auto start, and then connect this block to that path. And set the path properties. And again, just like before, one way and stop. And this button up here, when pressed, will come over to the path and do reset and play. And that will open the door. It'll slide down into the floor and out of the way and leave that open to walk through. And now I need two more doors. I'm going to connect over here And I also need for the vault. And so these are going to work just like the elevator door did. And I'm going to go ahead and hook those up now, and I'll be right back. Okay, all of the doors are in. I've got this one connected to a button that leads into this room with the holographic Death Star. And then around the corner, I've got this button hooked up to 3 of these doors, which lead into the vault. This last door is going to be a little bit different. So I want that one to open when we pick up the Death Star plans. And so for that, we're going to come back up to the Creativitoys drawer. And I'm going to drop down a collectible tracker. And the collectible that I'm using for the Death Star plans, if we go ahead and move this, this is the blueprint collectible. And so on the tracker here, we'll come into the properties, and for the collectible type, we're going to look for the blueprint. There it is. Okay. And I don't think that we need to show that collectible on the radar. That'll just be there in this case. So we'll go ahead and hit the back button. So new logic connection. When the collectible is collected, we'll come over to this door and do reset and play. And that will open up the door, which leads us to the exit. And now we need a way to trigger the enemies for these areas. And I could do that off of this button, but I have a feeling the door would open and there'd be no enemies there initially, because the generation does take a few seconds. And so I'm thinking rather instead, probably the way to do this would be to set up a trigger area down here, a little further down the hall. And I'm thinking probably doing it right here. There we go. And I'm thinking too that we only want to do this one time. So I'm going to need a logic gate to go with this. So we'll come over here and pick up the logic gate. And again, I'll just drop that here for right now just to make this easy to hook up. So a new logic connection on the trigger area when it's entered by player Annie. I'm going to come over here to the enemy generator in here and generate that wave. And on the trigger area, I also want to have it set up so that when any player enters this, we come over to the logic gate and input. And on the logic gate, when that outputs, come over to the trigger area and deactivate it. So that'll only happen one time. And I could set up another trigger area in here. Thinking though we could use this button for that. So a new logic connection, when that's pressed and this door opens, it's going to take us a little bit to get over here. So we can go ahead and generate this wave at that point in time. And that'll be fine. Okay. And I think that's pretty much everything. Let me think here. Other than putting the roof on this place. So we come in, we've got some enemies in here to defeat. We come around here. In the game, the original Dark Forces game, there were a few weapons and things back in this area, which we don't have, but I'm thinking a special move capsule or two might be worth setting up over here, just to make it worthwhile for the player to come into this area. And so I'm going to go ahead and set one up over here, and we'll set one up over here. And that gives the player a reason to come back into this area. So that's a good thing. And then out here, we've got this console set up. When hacked, it'll open up this door. We come through that door, ride the elevator up, and by the time we get up here, this enemy generator, which is also connected to that hacked terminal, will have spawned some enemies. We'll fight them. Come over and hit this button, which opens up this secret door. We've hooked that up. And we come around here down the stairs, which generates the enemies in this room. Push this button to open the door, fight the enemies. Come around this corner, fight the enemies here. Press the button to open the vault. Grab the blueprints through this door and then up to the exit. So that's pretty much everything that we need here. And the last thing I want to do is set up this door. So under the properties for this, and this is sometimes where you're going to run into this little problem. So I want to get back to the original level, and this should say Dark Forces Mission Number 1, and it says Level 1. And if I try to use this door, and we'll actually come back out here. It's going to tell me that I have to adjust the properties for the door. So this is a little bit of a bug, but it's not too bad a problem. So what I'm going to do is come up here and save my game. And at this point, once this finishes saving, we can simply exit the toy box and come back. And then when we come back in here to this toy box, I can set up that door. So that's really not too bad a problem. I think, though, before I do that, since I've got everything set up in here, I should probably go ahead and drop the ceiling on this thing now, and then go ahead and save it one last time. And that will be everything we need for this area and this toy box, except for that door. Then I'll be exiting out of the toy box and coming back in and set up that toy box door, and then we'll be done. Okay, I've exited my toy box and reloaded it, and I added this little door section back here with a locator, and this will be where we emerge from the tower. And I've set the properties for this so that the door destination tag is set to 1 instead of none. And on the other side of the tower, I've added 2 little buttons just temporarily to make it easy to get back into the tower without having to run around and hack terminals. So I can come over here just real quick and press the button, which lets me get in here. And I'm going to head over to my interior, and I'll see you there in just a moment. And here we are in the interior, and you can see I hid the starting pad here. Set the property for that so that it's invisible when you first come into the toy box here. So I set the visible display off. And it looks like, oh yeah, the level generator is already generating enemies for me.
Rebel, I knew it. Look out.
So we already get to have a little fun.
Flank them. Move around.
Not that I need to kill these guys, but since I'm here.
Here we go. Load up and fall in.
Okay. Anyway,
Flank them. Move around.
I guess I should probably have a reset button in here for when I come in to the toy box, and I just need to make a few edits like I do now. So we'll come over here and add a quick little button so that these enemies that show up initially, I can get rid of them. And we'll come in here and new logic connection when pressed. I want to come over to this enemy generator, which I moved out of that one area, and defeat the wave. And when pressed, defeat that wave. Those are the two that get spawned on level entry. There we go. That gets the enemies out. Don't want those when I save my game. And the stairway should be right under here with the door. Yep. Nice. Okay, so now if we come in here and edit this toy box door, you'll see now it's correct. Dark Forces Mission 1. The destination locator tag I want to set to 1. That will be the locator behind the building, which we set up outside, and require confirmation is fine. So now this door is good. I can go ahead and exit out of there. And at this point, we'll go ahead and save again. And that takes care of the interior. So I know this was a little bit of a long video, but I wanted to show you everything that I've done on the interior, and I wanted to do this in one single video if I could. So that way you can see everything that needs to be done. I didn't really see a good place to break this up. And now if we go ahead and head out this door, we can head back to the outdoor area, and it should put us over there behind the tower. So for those of you who've watched this video all the way to this point so far, thank you for watching. I know this was a bit of a longer video today, but I wanted to do the entire tower interior in one video. There weren't very many tasks to do as far as variety goes, as mainly bringing the interior pieces out and setting up the enemy wave generators and all of the doors that needed to be set up. And so it didn't make sense to try to break all of that up into multiple videos. So again, I apologize for the long video and thank you for sticking with me. And as we come outside, I want to thank you again for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or at least found it helpful, I would appreciate a like. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe to my channel or sign up on my blog so you can watch me play through this next time in its entirety. I'm really excited to see how this has all turned out. For those of you who are building this in your own toy boxes, you can find build tips and logic diagrams on my blog as well that will help you out. And for now, this is Luke Skywalker and I signing off from Scarif, and we'll see you next time.